Hi, everybody, and welcome to Weekend Game Plan with Marcus Hersh. I'm your host, Dan Illman, along with daily racing form handicapper and analyst Marcus Hersh. And we have three weekend spot plays to take a peek at, three nice stakes races. We'll begin with perhaps the most highly anticipated race of the weekend. Let's take a look at the field for Saturday's Grade 3 Bold Ruler Stakes at Belmont. It is the return of Maximum Security. Marcus, he is even money on David Aragona's morning line, and I wouldn't argue with anyone trying to take a chance against this horse. It is his first race against older horses. It is his first race turning back into a sprint in a very long time as he preps for something like the Cigar Mile or the Clark Handicap. And of course, we haven't seen this horse since the Pennsylvania Derby, where he was scratched because he had colic issues. So there are some things against Maximum Security at a short price.
Well, I mean, personally, I think it's like I picked a horse, True Timber, who I don't love. I mean, I think that he's going to outrun his odds, but I feel like at least look at the race and try to find some way to go against Maximum Security. I think of course he can win. I mean, and maybe he will win, but I think he's a great horse to play against. There are so many things against him at the price. I think, first of all, I mean, you mentioned the first time against older horses, and that's true. But a lot of times with these 3-year-olds, they at least get in a weight for age race where they get some pounds to compensate for their maturity deficit. But that is not the case here. This being a handicap, he actually is giving weight just a little bit to the older horses. Also, I think, Dan, the rail draw is really complicating for this horse. He can come from a little off the pace, but he's not going to want to take back and come around unless they're just experimenting. And I see plenty of pace to his outside, and he's not. I mean, I don't know that he's actually faster than several other horses in the race. So at the price and under the circumstances, you mentioned the layoff, I think he's a strong play against.
Well, let's talk a little bit about True Timber, because just as it seemed like he was getting into his very best form last year, the connections decided to place him into some impossible spots. The Pegasus World Cup, the Godolphin Mile, very difficult spot. Let's go back to his most recent race, off for the long layoff. I think this was a means to this end. While Maximum Security might be prepping for the Cigar Mile or the Clark, this race, where we see him come with a nice little run to get a piece, might have been a prep for the Bold Ruler. He's got good tactical speed, and again, at this time last year, he was getting into form.
Yeah, I mean, I actually liked him in the Godolphin Mile, Dan. He just didn't. I mean, he looked fine there. I didn't see any signs that he didn't travel well, but he didn't run at all. I mean, that sandy surface is not for everyone. But yeah, the Kelso, he's ding-donging in the lead. I don't want him to run like that this time, and he doesn't have to run like that. And that fits with the idea that they were just getting him back and sharpening him up for a race they really thought he could win, which I'm hoping is this race. I want to see him taken back right behind the pace like he was in the Cigar Mile. If he runs the Cigar Mile, I think he can win this race. I mean, he's a horse. He's 5. He's run 20 times. He kind of is what he is to some extent, but I feel like his very top efforts, his maximum upside, that's good enough to be a major factor in this race.
And he's going to be a price, the number 4, True Timber, 8-1 on the morning line in the Bold Ruler Handicap. We will remain at Aqueduct for the Awadh Stakes. This for 3-year-olds going 1 mile on the turf. And this is just a wide open affair. Your morning line favorite is the number 3, Tiesto, 7-2 on the morning line. This was a debut winner for Bill Mott, but this horse was a big price when he won the debut, and obviously is going to be a fraction of those odds against tougher horses, against winners for the first time.
Yeah, I don't envy David Aragona having to make this line. This is a really tough one. I mean, that horse could be 7-2. He could be 6-1 for all I know. What stuck out to me in this race was, as I mentioned in the copy that I wrote for this feature in Sunday's Daily Racing Form and online, this horse Get Smokin'. I've been following the 2-year-old turf horses covering the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf with our weekly updates at Daily Racing Form through the fall. And I just noticed, I mean, one way I check to see who's doing what is go through the list of top buyer speed figures, because, even if the buyer is not the end-all be-all guide to performance, at least gives you an idea of what races to look at and what horses have run fast on this scale and whatever. And this horse is 77 buyer from his maiden win September 18th caught my eye because it's one of the highest 2-year-old turf figures so far this year. I think it's a legit number. and he ran in a restricted race. These races they started running in New York, where there's a maximum sales price on horses that are eligible. So that you would think would tamp down the quality, but the horse Fame to Famous, who finished second, he was 4-5 in that race. He had been third in the With Anticipation at Saratoga, won by Decorated Invader, who franked that for him, winning the Summer Stakes at Woodbine, and I think has got a decent chance in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. Fame to Famous, he was a solid third there, and then after that race where Get Smokin' beat him, he came back and won a maiden race very well with an 83 buyer in New York, a turf race. And Get Smokin', this horse, he was a little slow to settle off a really fast pace. The horse that was leading was off by himself, but this horse was sitting second. But he did eventually come back to the rider, first time going a route of ground, just second start of his life. And after chasing that hot pace and turning for home, if you watch the race, he quickened up nicely like a horse who had gone slower. He got a little green, maybe a little tired at the end, but that to me just says he has more room to go. I thought it was an even more impressive performance watching it than the number. And I think this horse has been given plenty of time. It's 6 weeks. He's got works in between. I think he's, properly spotted, and I think he's going to be the right price.
I agree. We see him changing back to his left lead here, but I think he's just getting fatigued because of all of the things that you mentioned. That was a legitimate pace that was being set by that loose pace setter, and this horse did a lot of chasing by himself in second. He made a good, strong run into the teeth of that pace to make the front, and then he put everybody away. He's trained by a very underrated, smart, shrewd horseman in Tom Bush, and I think this horse can get another good trip. He is, I believe, let's see, 9-2. I was right on the morning line in the Awad Stakes. What do you think? I think 9-2 is fair.
Yeah, I think he'll be that price. I mean, it's such a big field, and I don't think he's going to get a ton of attention. You mentioned the trainer, Tom Bush, and the sire got Get Stormy. That sire is like a really underrated sire. He gets a lot of really talented turf horses.
Very flashy, good-looking horses, just like this one as well. We'll move out to Santa Anita for our third and final race in this week's Weekend Game Plan. Let's take a peek at the field for the Autumn Miss, the Grade 3 Autumn Miss, $100,000 the purse, a full field of fillies and mares on display for race number 7 at Santa Anita. And going over this race the first time, one of the things I noticed right away is there's some pace in here.
Oh, yeah. Now, listen, part of my job for this feature in Raley Racing Forums is to pick out 3 stakes races on a Saturday. So let me preface this by saying there are not a lot of stakes races on Saturday. And I did a lot of delving around looking for prices, and it's not my habit to pick short prices. But I've picked one here, and this horse is 5-2 on the line. I don't believe for a second this horse is going to be 5-2 in this race. I think she's going to be a considerably shorter price, but I think she's such a standout in the field that I selected her as kind of a single to hang her head on, either vertically or horizontally, because I think she's easily the best horse in this race. And as you mentioned, Dan, the race really ought to set up for her. She's going to be off of it. She was in the Del Mar Oaks, and she should have a lot of pace to run into. She's got an excellent jockey in Flavien Prat who knows how to take advantage of these situations. She just ran a fine second to Cambier Park, who was supposed to be Newspaper of Record's understudy in the Chad Brown Barn 3-year-old filly division this year, but emerged as the best horse of that division in that stable and probably in North America. I mean, she just won the QE2 and another excellent performance. This is a big step down in class for this horse, and it's not like her Del Mar Oaks came out of nowhere, Dan. Her French form before she was exported and turned over to trainer Simon Callahan, while it's not top class, it's very solid. I think that she's a legitimate horse, and she really ought to beat this bunch.
And we'll take a look at the final quarter-mile run of the Del Mar Oaks from Secret Message. You see her swinging to the outside. She's second from the left in the red silk. She's going to straighten away. Right to her outside is Cambier Park, who, of course, came back to win the Queen Elizabeth II Stakes. This was a beautiful ride from Flavien Prat because this horse had a very difficult outside post position, but all in all, didn't lose much ground at all going into the first turn and onto the backstretch. He gave her every chance to win. Cambier Park is just in raging form. form right now. You mentioned the class drop. This horse is just extremely logical. That's the 3 Hidden Message, 5-2 in the morning line in the Autumn Stakes. So to review, in the Bold Ruler Handicap, Marcus likes the 4 True Timber. In the Awadh Stakes, Marcus likes the 8 Get Smokin'. And in the Autumn Stakes, we're going with the 3 Hidden Message. It's Weekend Game Plan with Marcus Hersh. Best of luck, everybody.